hello everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Mindability Matters. And for the first time ever, we have not one, but two guests who I just want to do a brief introduction before I hand over to ask them to introduce themselves. I have been following face2faceHR for a while, and I've loved everything that Eleanor and now Justin have done in terms of supporting HR consultants to build a successful business on their own terms, but using a franchise model. And I used to kind of sit there with severe FOMO going, let me in, I love what you're doing in terms of helping your consultants. And they're always such a happy bunch. And then they reached out and said, hey, why don't we collaborate and do something together? And it was just, lots of dreams came true for me at that moment in time, and I love what they're doing. So without further ado, I would love them to introduce themselves. Eleanor, let me start with you.
So hello, yes, and lovely to be here and lovely to be working with you, Sam. We're very excited, aren't we, Justin? Definitely. So I'm Eleanor Deem. I'm the founder of face2faceHR. And yeah, I started the business 2008 as an HR consultancy, just me, and then franchised it a number of years later. And here we are.
Justin.
Well, I'm coming up my 2 years, believe it or not, with face2faceHR. So I've been in the industry a whole 25 years. So I've been in franchising for 25 years, and I've sort of started up and grown through franchising. And I've been with face2face a couple of years now. Really enjoying it, enjoying the progression of the company and being part of that and taking it in the right direction. So it's fantastic.
Yeah, and it's really interesting, isn't it? Because there's still a lot of fear, I think, out there in terms of, we can't collaborate, we can't share this, their competition. And Eleanor, I know you and I both see things very differently in that regard. And I mean, you built a franchise business out of it. What was the dream, or what was the vision when you first started out with the franchise?
I talk sometimes when I'm talking to potential franchisees, people who are interested in working with us. I do talk about my light bulb moment, and I've had two. I had one light bulb moment about going into HR, but I had another one about the franchise. And I have someone else to thank, and I can't remember her name, which is terrible. I can't remember who it was. Just sort of short story. I'd been started face2faceHR by myself with no support, nothing, and I had no idea what I was doing. Which is not unusual, I know. It's not just me. The HR stuff, absolutely fine. No problem with the HR stuff. I thought, there's bound to be small businesses in the area who would benefit from my advice. That fine. They're out there somewhere, and I know what I'm doing. Surely that will be fine. But it's all the rest of it, isn't it? It's all the other things. It's the business development. It's the, how do I actually get those people that I know I can help? How do I get those? And when I get them, how much do I charge them? I charged wrong for ages. I undercharged, which everybody wants to do. Don't do it. Do not do it. But so I got that wrong for ages. And with the marketing, I tried so many different things that I now know were completely pointless. I really, really did. I had to dig out an old business plan recently for reasons, and I'd done it. I think it was about 6 months in. I'd done it, and it was beautifully organised and everything. I planned all my time and all these things I was going to do, and I did them, and they were pointless. They were pointless. I lots of things that had I known, lots of things that were never going to work. I now know were completely pointless. Time, money, effort, headspace on those. Also things that had I known how to do them well would have worked much more quickly, lots of those things as well. I spent a lot of time faffing around creating a website for myself, which was not a good idea, but I did. Avoidance, really, avoiding doing other things. I'm terribly busy making the website. Possibly don't talk to anybody. So there's a bit of that. And then, things started to fall into place. I did, after my trial and error, you get there to a certain extent. I got advice from various people who know about things. I got some work done on the brand, which was very useful fairly early on, which we redid a few years ago now, but I did it sort of a couple of years in. That was very, very useful in terms of what my values are about how I like to deliver services. And then there came a point where it all clicked and I thought, oh, I know how to do this now. Oh, I see. There was that whole kind of, I get it. I know how to do this. And that was good. And then it all sort of fell into place. And I started, my turnover went up, which of course matters. It's not around, it's a business and I have bills to pay. And I had a nice set of clients that I enjoyed working with, and it was all ticking along. That was great. Brilliant. And then there was a networking meeting I was going to regularly. It was a really good group of people. Sometimes you just get a really good group of people.
Yeah.
It could be, a sports team, it could be a networking meeting, it could be anything, but it just was a really good dynamic of people, really good mix of expertise and everything. And one of the things they used to do as part of the sort of timetable for the events every month was sort of like a mastermind session. So it would be someone's turn and you'd go along and say, this is the challenge I'm currently having in my business, and everyone pitch in with, or speak to so-and-so, they can help you, or what about doing this, and various ideas. And it was going to be my turn. So obviously this is a great opportunity. You've got all these people in the room focused on your business for an hour. Brilliant. So I had to think about, what am I going to say? What am I going to ask? My work is good. I'm enjoying. I've got my work balance that I really like. My clients are nice. They pay me and everything. All of that's ticking along. But there's an opportunity. So I brought two things. And the first thing was, how do I bring the kind of HR that I think works really well for small businesses to more organisations than I can manage by myself? I'm not Superwoman. There's only so many hours in the week.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm very keen on very tailored, very practical, very pragmatic, very down to earth, not risk averse, very approachable, friendly, all of those things really important to me in terms of HR. I think it works really well for small businesses, but there's a limit to how many I can do, which I suppose that question is really, how do I grow? Essentially is what I was asking. And I had reached a point where I kind of needed to make a decision about that. How do I grow? Do I grow? What do I do? So that was the first thing. And the second thing was, I'm always very keen on making the most of everything. And I'd accumulated all of this knowledge, some of it accidentally, about how to do this really, really well. And I know how to do this really, really well. And I was very conscious that there are lots of HR people out there who, for whatever reason personal to them, would benefit from self-employment. Yeah. Sometimes it's work-life balance. Sometimes they've got small kids, big kids, elderly parents, whatever. Sometimes they've got a hobby they want to have, that want to make time for. Sometimes it's nothing to do with work-life balance, and it's about wanting to make an impact. That's a really common thing I hear. People want to make an impact with what they do, and they feel in their employed roles they're sometimes struggling to see that or do that. Don't want internal politics, all of these things. There are lots of reasons why someone might benefit from self-employment, but I knew there were these people out there, and I knew that there were lots of them who either would struggle doing it on their own and might give up, or might fail, or might not do it at all.
Yeah, exactly.
And that would be a shame. And is there anything I can do with those things? Can I put that together in some way? I didn't know what that might look like at all. But just threw it out there to the group. Anyone got any thoughts about that? And then somebody said, and as I say earlier, I cannot remember who it was, and I owe this woman, a lot, because she came up with the idea. I can't remember who it was. So if you're out there, I apologise. She said, have you thought about franchising? And I said, oh no, that's not, no. Because to me, it was like, I'm not McDonald's, I'm not a Subway or Costa. I don't have people in matching polo shirts. We have got polo shirts, but I don't have people in matching polo shirts, making the same burger. Or, that's not what this is about. I'm all about empowering people and wanting people to determine what success looks like for them. That's very important to me for a number of reasons. So I thought she kind of, thank you for the idea, but probably not. And she said quite rightly, no, have a look into it, because there are professional services ones now. Obviously, there are accountancies, IFAs, business coaches, all sorts of things. And she said, what you could do is you could have people who share your values, who would benefit from self-employment, and what they could do is they could operate in their area, and they could benefit from your training, resources, support, mentoring, whatever that might look like. And that would mean they would achieve something that they otherwise wouldn't. And it means that the kind of HR you think really works well would be brought more widely. That would tick both boxes. So that was the idea. That was the light bulb. After I'd sort of got over my, reaction. That was the light bulb, and lots of obviously investment and development later. That's now what we do, and it's brilliant. I love it, and I would say that I realise, but I'm very passionate about what we do and how we do it and the difference we can make. And as I say, I'm all about enabling people to achieve whatever success looks like for them at any given moment, which changes. So I could waffle free. I told you this earlier. I could waffle.
No, but I love it, Eleanor. But I think that story is really important, isn't it? Because it really highlights, and again, I know you and I've spoken about this so much, which is you don't know what you don't know.
No, exactly.
And then, you've got, say, Justin, your expertise, which is deep in the franchise space, and you being able to support that. How have you seen things change and evolve since you two have come together? And I've experienced firsthand working with you both. But what's that experience like for those who are coming on board and they're not sure if they're listening to this? I guess my question is, if someone's listening to this today and they're thinking about, do I go it alone or do I go the franchise route? How do you see that journey going for someone when they join you?
It's all about asking questions. And because Eleanor does an absolutely great open introduction from the get-go when the prospective franchise partner starts to talk to us. It's literally a warts and all discussion with Eleanor, which is fantastic, because then by the time they come to me, they're aware of all the resources that are available to them. They're aware of the ethics and the history of the company and the ethics and aligning our beliefs. And then I sort of talk them through that, answering the questions. Where they want what they want from their business, what the direction that they want their business to go in. I'm talking to two perspectives at the moment, and I've literally had two conversations all through the last part of last week and into this morning, and both of them saying exactly, it's a nervous excitement, which is absolutely fantastic, and they're very excited to be at the point where they're about to hit the go button, and they're just asking loads and loads of questions, and my job basically is to answer them honestly and openly. And the feedback that I'm getting from people is, that they're so pleased at the way that we're talking to them about the business, because we're very, very open, and it's not for everyone.
No, it's not. It's really not.
It's not okay. Let's buy a franchise. Let's become a franchisee, and all our problems are solved. It's not like that at all. It won't suit everyone, but the people that come through the process are in that position because they want to be a part of something like the face-to-face HR franchise. For me, is very, very refreshing model, because we're taking people with a knowledge base already, and we're just helping them, guiding them into owning their own consultancy under the face-to-face HR brand, which is fantastic. And then we're guiding them into the way of working and helping them build their business because they want to build a business. That's the thing, and it's nice. I say it is slightly different to other franchise models that I work for, where you've taken people from totally different industries and you've trained them into a way of becoming a franchisee and selling that product or working that. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, because that's the majority of franchise models in the UK. But the face-to-face HR franchise model is a little bit different, because we're helping support those people within an industry that they already know. So it's just about following the model, and the successful franchise partners that we have are the people that follow that specific model, and are willing to listen to what the franchisor has to say about the process and follow it and do the things that, as Eleanor sort of said, it's a bit niche. So if you learn from the things that Eleanor's experienced in the past and the reasons why, and you then listen to that, you follow the guidance, you follow the support, you follow the marketing model, you can build an incredibly successful business from it.
And it doesn't, is it hard work? Yes. Are you going to get a lot of no's? Yes. But actually that's all part, and you and I were talking about it before, before I hit live today, about that, if you like, that journey that, we've all been on it. We've all been to the networking events where we go to, and we see people just like us, and it's safe, so we carry on going, or the women only networking events, and they're lovely, but it's, you're in this because it's a business. And I think it's so easy to stay in your comfort zone. What's the biggest lesson you learned in terms of, okay, I've really got to push myself out my comfort zone? And my second part to that question is, how did you reward yourself for then coming out your comfort zone? And
oh, that's a good question, Sam. Biggest lesson. I mean, there are so many.
I know,
So many
right?
lessons. It's difficult to pick a big, but just latching on to sort of what you just said about the networking, the choice of networking. I did find myself, and it's very easy with networking to have suddenly a year's gone by, and you've been going regularly to an event or a group, and then you realise, hang on, have I had any work from this? I've spent a year. I've been going every month. It takes up, there was no virtual networking when I was doing it. It was all in person. In person is great anyway, but of course, if you go to an in-person event, you're basically knocking out at least half a day every time. And then there's the pre and the after and the everything. So if you suddenly get to a year and think, I've been going to this for a year, I've spent how many hours of my time, and have I got anything from it? It's very easy to suddenly be at that position. And with the women's only groups, they are fantastic. They are absolutely fantastic for women starting businesses. It can be very scary for women starting a business, and having a what feels like a much safer space to go where it's only women can feel really reassuring. And I include myself in that when you're just starting out. However, it's highly unlikely that a women's only group is going to be a good source of revenue for this kind of business. For the kind of business we're running and our franchisees are running, they're unlikely to be a good source of revenue, a good source of work, of referrals. So it's those kind of lessons that I kind of noticed, oh, hang on a minute, I've been going to these lovely women's groups and it's been all very nice and I've had some lovely lunches and met some lovely people, but have I actually even made back my fee, or
yes,
entirely, I mean, without sort of checking, I can't remember, but certainly not worth spending the time. What I say to new franchisees now when they're first starting out, going to as many groups as possible for the first sort of month or 6 weeks or something is a great idea, because it's a new thing to do. It's very scary. I remember very clearly my first networking event. It was in a bar in Cambridge. Weirdly.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't know why it was in a bar. It was a kind of sort of 5 o'clock in the evening-ish event, I think. It was a business one, but it was like in a section. I think it was in Brown's, in the bar at Brown's in Cambridge, if I remember rightly. Yeah, lovely. First thing I ever went to. And it was you just had to go up to people. That was really scary. And that wasn't a nice, safe women's only one. And it maybe it terrified me into, I'm just going to run off to these nice, safe women's groups now, because that was a bit scary, having to go up to random people in a bar. But it is scary at the beginning. So the more practice you can get and go out a lot, and just simple things like your 1 minute, most of these groups, you get an opportunity to speak for a minute or so. There's usually some kind of structure that, involves doing that. So if you can kind of practice talking about yourself and talking about what you're doing, which doesn't come naturally to a lot of people. A lot of them, we're terribly British often, and we don't like talking about ourselves, especially if we're women. But we don't like talking about ourselves. We don't like doing anything that might be boastful or anything like that. So there's lots of uncomfortable feelings that people often have to get over when they start doing networking. Some are better than, more comfortable than others, obviously, but there are a certain number of things that it's, difficult to get the hang of. So practicing those and at safe groups is not a bad thing to do, but it's just about very quickly honing down and paying attention to what's happening and who you're meeting, and sort of reducing and honing quickly your networking. And that's something we talk to new franchisees about in the first sort of few months as they go through. How are you doing with your honing? What are you finding? Who are you meeting? And it's helping draw their attention to, that group sounds really good because you've met so-and-so and so-and-so, and that seems good. This one, how is that going? And helping them hone. And it's those kind of lessons, and avoiding the kind of flailing around in the dark.
Yeah.
And the other biggest lesson is about charging. It really, really is about charging. I'm massively undercharged for ages because, again, I think it's also about being terribly British and not wanting to, oh, can I really ask someone for that much money for little old me? Really? You know, there's a bit of that happens. And people sometimes compare to their salary. And even if they were on a very good salary in-house, obviously at an hourly rate, it's not necessarily going to compare to what you should be charging a consultant.
Exactly.
There's a reason for that. You know, there's a reason for that. But if someone were to work out what their hourly rate would have been if they were on a very good salary, they might think, oh, that sounds like a lot of money. I don't think I can charge much more than that. And so that sort of kicks in at the beginning. People are desperate to get any, they don't want to sort of reduce the chance of getting any business. Oh, I just thought another lesson. Sorry, lots of things. They don't want to reduce their chances of getting any piece of business. So they think, if I'm cheaper, that will help, which it won't.
No, exactly. You know,
and there's a whole, you know, process of that, and people are very sort of worried about that and worried about charging too much. And, you know, people value what they pay highly for. They really, really do. And, you know, small businesses, when they're choosing their HR consultant, who is cheapest isn't what they do. They don't think, okay, well, there's a load of HR consultants available I could go to. I'm going to find who's the cheapest and I'm going to go with that person. That isn't what they do. That is not the decision-making process. So there is no point being the cheapest. It doesn't help you. And in fact, it might end up getting you clients that are not less likely to be the kind of people you want to work with as well. And all of a sudden, you can get to a year of undercharging and you can look back. And I did this with one of our consultants who is fantastic and no longer undercharges, but she did for about a year against my advice. She really struggled with that because she's so lovely. And then when we did a sort of year review for her, we looked back and she wasn't quite at the level that in terms of turnover that she wanted to be at. And I said, well, let's look back and see if you'd put 5% only 5% on everything that you've charged in the past year, even just that much, do you think any of those clients would not have gone with you? Would any of them have said, oh no, that's too much? And she said, no, none of them would. Well, there you go. And she doesn't undercharge anymore.
Well, exactly. And, you know, if you want to do a larger price hike, you can do that with new clients.
Absolutely.
But just do a slight step change. You know, it's compound, right? Compound works.
And that's what I had to do. I mean, when I kind of realised what I should be charging, I couldn't put all my existing clients up to that much straight away because it was quite a hefty jump, I will say. But obviously new ones I did, and then existing ones I did put up a bit of a jump because, you know, they were happy with me and I'm good at what I do, and that was all fine. And I got them, you know, within a couple of years, I got them to where they should be. But that's an expensive lesson to learn, you know. So I do sort of get on my soapbox with our new consultants, and, you know, they do tease me about it a little bit. The existing ones, they say, well, Eleanor bangs on about pricing, but she's right. They do say that I'm right. So there we go.
Anyone would think you've done it before, right?
I know, shocking. Yes, and the other lesson that I am going to carry on because it hit me as I was speaking. The other really important lesson that lots of people struggle with at the beginning is they want to appeal to everybody. Yeah. And again, it's about panicking. They don't want to lose any work. So, and you see it so often. And when we have a new consultant, we do a positioning exercise with them. We get them to look at who's around locally to them and do a comparison and what are they offering and how is our consultant different. Or we get them to do that exercise at the beginning. And what's not uncommon to find is when we're looking at other people's, you know, presence, websites and things, we do find people who are trying to appeal to everybody. Yeah. And they'll literally say things on their website like, I can do anything from managing a big project in a big corporate to helping a small business with a contract to everything in between. And I'm sure they probably can. I don't at all doubt that these people are extraordinarily competent and capable and can offer everything they're saying they can offer to everybody. But they're not going to get business that way because
they get nothing.
They'll get nothing. Exactly. Because, you know, if you're a potential client and you're arriving at their website or their social media or whatever it is, you're looking and you think, I'm not quite sure if that's for me. Is that aimed at me? Is that person aiming at me? That consultancy, I don't read it. So you go to someone who you're clear. Oh yes, that person is offering what I'm looking for, or to clients like me. That's what you're looking for. You know, I always use the plumber analogy. If you've got a problem with your bathroom, you want a plumber, you don't want a general handyman, really. And if you are living in a very old house, as I used to do, and I've renovated 3 bathrooms in a very old house, which is how I know these things, what you want is a plumber that can specialise in bathrooms in older houses.
Absolutely.
You don't just go to any random handyman down the street who might be very good at lots of things, but that's not what you do. You want someone who is doing what you want them to do, not someone who claims to do everything. So that kind of impulse to not want to restrict clients, so therefore I'm going to make it clear that I can do anything, is it's not gonna work. And so that's another big mistake that I see lots of people making, and lots of people wanting to make, I think.
Yeah, and I agree with you. You know, a small business owner is very different to a large corporate. Their hopes, their dreams, how they operate.
Yeah.
Justin, by the time they come to you and you're starting your conversation, what questions do you want to hear from them that you really want them to ask you?
Oh, that is a good one as well. I think it's questions. You got. I think it's to do with them actually doing a little bit of due diligence into the business themselves. And as Eleanor sort of said, we do ask them to go away, and we ask them to do their positioning exercise, look at the competition, think, and take a step back and look at the business. And I think it's. I try and push it back, I suppose, the other way, and sort of ask them some questions as well. Where do they want their business to be in 5 years, in 8 years? Looking past, the thing is with the franchise agreement, it's 5 years, so everyone looks at 5 years. Well, that's great, but let's look further than that. And where do you want to be? And I refer to it as the business sat nav. Let's start programming the sat nav now. Because and instead of laying the tracks down in front of the train, let's try and have some guidance as to where this is going in the first place. And I always like it when the franchise partners come at that instant or at the beginning to sort of say, where can my business go? What are my parameters of the business, and am I limited to certain things? And this is, and again, we come back to the reviewing and reviewing what we've done. Because we do, I try and keep in contact with the franchise partners as they're going through their training and then post-training. And both Eleanor and I do have sort of catch-up meetings with the franchisees as they follow that journey. And for me, it's about talking to them about adjusting. So if they're doing, don't continue to do the same things or get the same results. Especially if you're not getting the results you want, you've got to have the confidence to adjust. Because that I think that's one of the questions that come. Well, do I have to just follow this rigid? Do I have to? And the nice thing about the business is we allow the franchise partners to run the business their way, the way that they want to run it, but within the parameters of keeping the branding together, keeping the But and as Eleanor said, it's the no nonsense approach to real HR matters. And so we are fairly relaxed in that way. So yeah, and the franchise partners, when they come to us, it's about them asking the questions, because they've got a network of support. I think that's the other thing. They do have 16 other people, other peers within the franchise network that they can ask business related and HR related questions to, as well as drawing from the resources and the countless resources that are available online through our own portals and the playbook. So yeah. Sorry, that's kind of a.
No, but I love it. And again, it goes back to, we kind of skirted on running your own business, be that franchise or an independent, or building up your own business isn't for everyone. And Justin, I think you've touched on one of the points there. It's that conviction of flexing. Look, we've tried this, we've analyzed it, we've looked at what's working, we've looked at what's not working, and we got to change and pivot, and knowing that that's okay. Because if you keep going, again to what Eleanor was saying earlier, you keep going to the same events and having a lovely time, that word lovely doesn't equate to pounds in the bank account, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, when you look at it and you've because we've all made mistakes, right? Gosh, I've made so many. And I often say I'm the biggest failure I know because I've had more no's than anyone else. And I'm good with that, right? Because I've learned from that. And, I now say that it's fit future finance, now is because, okay, we've got this other priority. How do we stay in touch? Now is, oh, that's not quite in our budget. Well, let's work out how either we can get creative or we engineer it. But if it's fit, well, listen, you're just not going to get on with them. And you're not a good fit for one another. And that's okay. I mean, that's taken me a long time to realize that, that it's okay. You're not going to get on with everyone. And actually, the biggest thing I look for is building respect. I think that's a really important quality to build. If someone's thinking about going the franchise route and they're interested in it, what are the key things for them to consider? And this is for both of you, and I should imagine you've both got similar views, but also a couple of different ones, which is healthy, I think. What are the things they need to consider if they're sitting in a corporate job right now and they're either watching this live today, they're watching the recording, and they're wanting to make that jump? I know we're all the same, we're not going to push anyone, say do it. But what do they need to consider that people don't talk about?
I think I think there's a couple of things it's important to consider. I think one of them, people come to us at different stages in their thought process, which is quite interesting. So we have some people who come to us who have only recently thought about the notion of self-employment, and they've perhaps seen something that we've put out or something like that, or they've come across us or someone's mentioned us or something like that. And so we have a conversation. As Justin said, it's me. I have the first conversation with everybody. So anybody who has a conversation does come to me. So if anyone's interested in a conversation, it'll be me you're talking to. So I have those conversations. So sometimes they're quite early stages. Sometimes they are a bit further along. More typically, they're further along. They've been toying with self-employment as an idea for a while, usually. Sometimes they've gone to a stage where they've thought about self-employment, they've decided yes to self-employment, they've also decided that a franchise is a good idea, and they're now deciding which one. Sometimes they're in that position, and everything in between. So we do talk to people who have come in different routes and different sort of mental stages. I would say timing is not always right, and the reason I'm saying that is because I was speaking to a very lovely lady this morning who I've not told Justin about, and I first he's going to be so pleased with something she said. And I first spoke to her in 2019, and she was a lovely woman, but it wasn't the right time for her at that time. So that was fine. So she just carried on. She was just obviously on our mailing list, and she's seen me around as one does online and things.
Yeah.
And 6 years later, nearly 6 years later, things have changed for her. She's now in a position where now might be the right time. And one of the reasons I mentioned two reasons I mentioned. Firstly, it's because sometimes it's a very long burn.
Yes.
And you need to be at the right stage. So if you're just kind of thinking, oh, maybe self-employment, do some really good research about what that means and what self-employment looks like. And what people don't talk about is it's tough. It is tough. You're not going to suddenly replace your corporate salary within weeks. So, and it's, I could very easily sit here and talk about the lovely figures that some of our franchisees make and make it all sound very wonderful and lucrative, but it's tough at the beginning. Yeah. And it's important to talk about that and to ask questions. And franchisees or potential franchisees do ask us questions, and I encourage them to do so. They ask me questions about turnover, and I try to be very realistic with that. So that's an important question to ask. But also it's about getting it to the right time and being able to make an informed decision. And then when it comes to sort of which franchise, I would say, there are other options out there, and a lot of our franchisees, probably most of them, have looked at least one of the others, because that would be a normal, good due diligence thing to do.
Yes.
Absolutely. Don't get just swayed by me talking to you, look at others as well, because we're not the right fit for everybody, and vice versa. As I say, I think most, if not all of our franchisees have had conversations or looked at other options and have decided we're a better fit. And I think that's hugely important, because we have this brand, we have a number of brand values, a number of things that we do and an approach to things that we have. And if you're out there selling, and it's not it's not a salesy business, but effectively you are selling. And if you're selling someone else's brand, it's so important that you feel a genuine affinity with that and feel that brand genuinely represents who you are. Because if it doesn't, it won't work. It won't work, because you'll be convincing, but then when people meet you, they think, well, that will kind of jar. But more likely you will struggle, because you will be sort of representing yourself and your own values and how you are sometimes, and other times if you're putting out stuff that, you know, maybe comes from us or is provided by us or any of those things, or people look online, it's not going to quite fit, but it's also not going to feel comfortable. If you're out there selling a brand that you don't, you know, feel comfortable with, you're not going to do it very well. And that's no good for anybody. So I would say, if anyone toying with the idea of a franchise who thinks they've decided that a franchise would be a good idea, do look at all the options. We're the best, obviously. But in all seriousness, look at the options, because, you know, all the options available have different brands and different values and different approaches to things, and you need to find the one that's the right fit for you. So look at, you know, what they offer and the training resources and all of those things, and ask those hard questions about turnover and about how things work and what happens if this and what happens if that. Really ask all of those questions. But ultimately, if the answers to all of them are ones that you've understood and you're clear about, it's got to be the one that's the best fit for you, because you're going to be working with these people for a while. You know, if people come to work with us, they're going to be working with us for at least 5 years. They usually stay longer, which is nice. But, you know, it's a chunk of your life. It's a big life decision.
Yeah.
You need to feel an affinity with the brand and with the people you'll be working with. So that's my waffly answer. Justin.
To be fair, I had the desire to follow the system and be part of the brand. So that from our perspective, you know, that's one of the main key factors. Having a maverick entrepreneur isn't necessarily the right fit for a franchise business, because, as Eleanor sort of said, you know, it's about being the governor of the brand, you know, and being proud of the brand and walking into a room wanting to be part of face-to-face HR, as opposed to, well, I'm doing this and I'm just doing this for a little bit, you know, but you know, this is what we can do, but don't worry about the banner in the background. I'll do this and this and this for you. You know, it is literally, you know, being the brand ambassador as much as anything else, and following that, you know, following that through. So yeah, I think that's always very important when we're talking to people from the get-go, is, you know, their willingness to be part of something and part of a bigger brand, which again is one of the benefits of becoming, you know, or buying into a franchise.
Absolutely.
I always love the film, and I always love the film The Founder, with the old McDonald's.
Yeah.
And, you know, every franchisee anywhere should watch The Founder, because that's just a brilliant way of, you know, explaining franchising and the benefits of following a system. I know we're going back to flipping burgers, but the brand itself is incredible from what they've done, and the backstory of how they got there. You know, and so it's about. I always think it's about being proud of the brand. You know, you're part of the brand. Be proud of it. Why would you not?
I did at the beginning, when I was first sort of developing the franchise, I did struggle with that a little bit, because I'm you know, one of my big values is about empowerment and not being restrictive. So I did, and that's one of the reasons I turned my nose up at the beginning, because I thought, well, I'm not going to be restricting. I don't want to be too restrictive of people. That's not in my nature. I want to empower people. So I did sort of struggle with how we could therefore franchise and have all the, you know, things that Justin mentions, and the power of the brand and the support and everything, without being overly restrictive. And that was something, when we were developing, that was something that was quite important to work out how we would do that. Which I think we've done quite successfully. We sometimes get questions, and again, these are good questions to ask any franchise, questions about things like doing other things. And, you know, we have some of our consultants do all sorts of other things. We have some who are trained mediators. We have some people who do sponsorship licenses. They're trained to do that, various other bits and pieces. And I do sometimes get questions from people saying, oh, would I be allowed to do this, that and the other? Absolutely. As long as it's not conflicting with what we do, knock yourself out. No problem.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's those kind of things. And it's also things like the with the territories, again, because I'm very don't want to restrict people, and I don't want to be unfair, and I don't want lots of, arguments and things like that. So with the territories, what we do is the consultants all have a territory. But the rule we have, that's a very clear rule, is that wherever the work is that comes to you, that's your work. So we don't have any of the, arguments about where a client is based and should it have been offered to someone else and should have been paying percentage or any of those things. So we try and operate a common sense approach. And it was interesting, actually. I had a chat with Justin about this a few weeks ago, because somebody had asked me in one of my calls with a potential person, she'd asked me whether the consultants are all very competitive with each other. And I'd not been asked it before, but it's a fair question, actually.
It's a fair question,
but I just happened not to have been asked it before. And so I thought about it, when I was talking to her, I said, no, actually they're not. They're very collaborative, collegiate bunch of people. They're very supportive of each other. They work well together. They, some of them go to exhibitions together, if they're in the same sort of wider area, that kind of thing. And I just kind of, because that's what it's like. So I just kind of answered it. And I mentioned it to Justin next time I spoke to him after that. And I just said, I was asked this question. And he said, I think your approach to territories is one of the reasons why. And we'd just done that because it felt like the right thing, where work comes in, somebody could be living next door to one of our consultants, but they could know or be recommended someone else. And that work, it belongs to the other person. There's no sort of passing it over. But that's not normal. As Justin found when he started with us. And what he said to me when I mentioned this conversation to him was that that's why we have such a, collegiate bunch, because he said 90% or whatever of the disputes and antagonism and issues between franchisees that he spent his career, dealing with have been because of arguments about clients and territory. And we don't have that because that didn't feel like the right thing. It doesn't fit with our values. So we operate it our way. We find that works really well, and I think that's one of the reasons why.
Yeah, it makes such a difference. And I've seen members of face-to-face HR at events over the years together. I've seen it firsthand. So again, that's one of the values that I love, that you've created your own community of people who do genuinely support rather than compete.
Yeah, they're an enormously supportive bunch. They are so valuable. When I'm talking to people who are interested in joining us, I'm very much sort of bigging them up as a fantastic group of people to join. I'd say they all share our values, which is why they're working with us in the first place. But it means they're all very supportive of each other. There's a lot of passing of work amongst them where that's appropriate to do. If they need someone to hear an appeal or something like that, they'll sort of ask each other for help, or if somebody need a special skill that someone's got, we have a skills matrix that Justin put together that records what extra skills people have, so they can go and think, I need a mediator who does that. So there's a lot of support for each other, and it's and especially for newer ones, actually, it's so nice to see. And we have get-togethers twice a year. We have conferences twice a year. Our next one's in a few weeks' time. And it's so nice to see newer ones come along and meet everybody, and how supportive they all are, and they ask questions and they share experiences, and it's just so powerful just being in the room. There's a lot of knowledge and support in the room that just lifts everybody up, really. So they're a great bunch.
Love that. Wonderful. I could talk to you both for hours, and I'm very conscious of time. So I have three very important questions that I ask all my guests. So Eleanor, I'm going to start with you. What is your favourite cheese?
Goat cheese.
Oh, straight off the bat.
Absolutely. There was no question. No question. I love goat. If there's goat cheese on the menu, I'm having that. Always. I love goat cheese.
I love it. Justin, how about you?
See, I'm going to have to go gooey brie, I'm afraid. Nice room temperature gooey brie.
You go goo. I love this. Okay. So next question. What is the one television program or film that you've watched in the last year that you really feel you will not get those precious moments of your life back again?
I mean, that's a tricky one. I mean,
I had someone the other week who said literally everything that my husband watches I don't like.
See, we're quite well aligned, but I won't do anything with zombies in it. So there we go. That's my genre. If it's got a zombie in it, it's an instant no. Sorry.
I do think there's less of watching things that you turn out not to like now, because you can check everything first and ask for recommendations. So I mean, if I was, I'd have to go back further than a year, I think. But I don't, anything that feels fake. Any reality TV that feels.
Oh yeah, I'm so done with it. It's like,
so I just avoid. I do avoid anything like that, because I just think, well, that's just that's just fake. You're just pretending. And I know there's an entertainment value in that, but it's not for me.
Yeah. Now I used to love it in the beginning, and I come from a media background.
Yeah, I was right at the beginning. Big Brother.
Oh yeah,
I was a big fan. Absolutely. Yeah. So the concept, but I think it's a little bit ruined now. But it's probably inevitable, I think.
Yeah, overdone. So I know you both do very different things outside of work. I'd like you now to both think you're going away on holiday with your respective families, and you're taking a flotation device with you, either for the swimming pool, Justin, maybe swimming pool and sea or river with you. What flotation device would you take, and why? I'm going to start with Justin on this one, because he's such a water baby.
Well, I'm going to have to go for a big inflatable swan, because nice and calm on the top, but paddling like fury underneath. There we go.
I had no idea where you were going to go, because you were yachty. So, Eleanor, how about you?
Well, I mean, I could try and think of something all very symbolic, but I'm going to say two things. That when the kids were a bit smaller, we used to go to a villa in Spain with a pool, and we used to flotation devices were a big thing for the boys. So we used to pack a suitcase, and you whole suitcase, and you're trying to get them as small as possible. But two that were really good. I liked the flamingo. We had a flamingo that was really good. I quite liked. But the one that was funny, which has to be of comedy value, it was like a circle, and you were supposed to sit in it or something and make it go round across the water. This was the idea. Oh, I mean, no. I couldn't. I mean, so we have video of me and of my ex-husband trying to make this and falling in. So for comedy value only, I would bring that one. Yes.
Oh my God, I just love it. This is best yet. They get better every week.
You're gonna have to dig that out for the next team meeting, Eleanor. Sorry, we're gonna
I love that.
Yes.
I just thank you both for coming on to the show today. I'm sure that you've piqued the interest of several people. If they want to get in touch with you, Eleanor, I know you said that they come to you first. What's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Well, they can certainly reach out to me on social media, LinkedIn. Happy to receive any messages on LinkedIn. They can go to the website and download a copy of the prospectus, which has all the info. We try to be very open with what's in our prospectus, so there's lots of information. So if they go on there and put their email address and download the prospectus, that will then go into our system, and that will automatically generate me to send them an email, which is me emailing you. It's not automated. When I email you, it's me doing it. Okay. And if they want to call, they can obviously say so at that point. But downloading the prospectus is a good thing to do, because it gives lots more information and gets you into our system, so we can get in touch.
And we do constantly update the prospectus as well, so that's fine.
Yes, Sam is now in it.
Yay! I'm very excited about this.
Yes.
I want to thank you both for coming on today, especially the day after Easter. It's just bonkers busy, and I'm sure it is for you both as well. Please do reach out to Eleanor. I'm just delighted to be collaborating and working with them, as I said, and I genuinely mean this. I've been watching from afar and building up a great relationship with face2faceHR over the last few years. I fundamentally believe that what you're doing is different to any of the other HR franchises out there. And it's testament to what you said earlier. They collaborate, they work together, they don't compete. Please reach out to them. They do fantastic things and working together to really change the world of work. So, any final thoughts that you'd like to add before we close?
Just thank you very much, really. It's been a great 40, how many minutes it's been? It's flown by.
Isn't it?
50 minutes, yeah, it's been brilliant. It's been lovely talking to you, and yeah, everybody can hopefully we'll have found it useful and enjoyable.
And looking forward to the collaboration of working with you, Sam, as well. So yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, me too. So from all three of us, it's goodbye from all of us, and